A lot to get into today. Our friend Brian O'Shea joins us. He's, of course, investigative journalist at the Daily Clout. He is also the host of Investigate Everything. You can follow it at dailyclout.io. He's an Army vet, former intelligence consultant, and we're going to talk about overreach, particularly the UN holding its AI for Good summit. But what does the UN consider to be for good? And is it our good, their good? I don't know. The world is turning into one giant escape game, says Noor bin Laden. Except with escape games, if these people had their ways, there would be no escape. And then we will be joined by the great Viva Frei. He's joining us, and then we're going to do a little side conversation with Brady Bates about vapes. We'll be right back with Brian O'Shea after this.
Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want to help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
I'm excited to bring you a new product, a new supplement, Fatty. I take it. I make Susan take it. My whole family takes it. This comes out of, believe it or not, dolphin research. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins, and a brilliant veterinarian recognized that these dolphins sometimes developed a syndrome identical to our Alzheimer's disease. Those dolphins were deficient in a particular fatty acid. She replaced the fatty acid, and they didn't get the Alzheimer's. Humans have the same issue, and we are more deficient in this particular fatty acid than ever before. And a simple replacement of this fatty acid called C15 will help us prevent these syndromes. It's published in a recent journal called Metabolites. It's a new nutritional C15, pentadecanoic acid it's called. The deficiency that we are developing for C15 creates something called the cellular fragility syndrome. This is the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years and may be affecting us in many ways, and as many as 1 in 3 of us. This is an important breakthrough. Take advantage of it. Go to fatty15.com/Dr. Drew to receive 15% off a 90-day starter kit subscription, or use code Dr. Drew at checkout for that 15% off, or just go to our website, drdrew.com/fatty15. Okay, Brian O'Shea on X, Brian O'Sheaspi, and also Rumble, Investigate Everything on Daily Clout. Brian, I know you're in London, and it's 6 or 7 hours later there.
He has a Substack, too.
Oh, what's the Substack, Susan? Tell me, I don't have it on my thing here.
Brian can tell us.
It's brianO'Shea.substack.com.
Thank you.
That's a reach. And so you're in London, and we appreciate you coming in at the last minute. Susan is very, very, very concerned that AI is going to be co-opted by, of course, none other than the Chinese Communist Party and the People's Liberation Army. Is there concern about that? What is your take on what the recent UN summit is, the AI for good, is accomplishing or not?
Well, there should be concern about that, because it's not that they're going to co-opt it. It's pretty much that they own it now. But not only do they own that, they own the entire agenda, because here in London, one of their favorite papers is the China Daily. And it was just last week that they concluded the Eco Forum Global Gayang 2025, which literally had an identical agenda.
Identical to the AI for good?
Yeah, the AI for good. It's all about their 3 Ps, which go back to the Sustainable Development Goals of people, planet, and prosperity, which sounds just like One Health, which is people, planet, and animals in tackling global health. So however they dress it up with AI, with tools, with everything else, this is all about soft, unrecognizable warfare to take away people's rights. And the danger of AI is creating a reality, because so many people are getting their news not from news sources, good or bad. They're getting it from social media. And as we've seen with the current row between Elon Musk and Donald Trump, the AI results of Grok have changed to kind of match Elon Musk's mood.
And Grok yesterday showed itself to be capable of all kinds of crazy hallucinations, let's call them. Caleb, I don't know if you know the story behind that. Caleb apparently has some update on that. Do you know what happened there, Brian?
Yes. Reportedly, what it seems to be is that they altered maybe one or two lines of the starting prompt for Grok, and they told it basically in short language. They told it to tell the truth as it sees it, even if it's politically incorrect, and then it went nuts.
And
Wow.
and I think they fired the person that inserted that line of copy, right? And my question to you, Caleb, is what was it that it finally started calling itself?
Mecha Hitler. For a while, it was referring to itself as that. And that's around the time that they just shut the whole thing down, where they said, we're not going to do any more text replies. And it would only generate images for a while when you would, at reply at Grok on X.
Now,
but then what people would do is then they would tell it
shut down?
generate images.
We're going to get shut down because that word was spoken on this show, even though we're just describing what Grok said.
It depends on which platform.
Insane.
We're safe on Rumble.
Oh my God. I'm reaching for something that is just a reminder for me of how far we deteriorated during the COVID era. Susan pulled this out. I don't know where you got this, but there it is, everybody. This is made up. And the whole world had these things in front of every not in front of, in and around every establishment on earth. Made up. Came out of nowhere. No science. Nothing. Zero. And yet we all, like good sheep, followed behind the recommendations. And
They're expensive.
they're expensive. Yeah, and they're still stuck on floors all over the world. But that's the point here, is that this compliance movement, I'm comply. Adam Carolla and I were doing a podcast this morning, and we were listening to something he and I did over 10 years ago. And in that tape of us talking, we were talking to a caller who was being required to do all sorts of anti-sexual misconduct training. Remember, we had to do that all the time 10 years ago? It was being done constantly. And he worked in a law firm, and he needed it to maintain his standing with the bar. And Adam at the time was saying, don't do it. Don't do it. They're crate training us. This is the beginning. We need to gather together and stand up to this. They are trying to slowly muscle us into submission. And that is what COVID was. That is what this was. I'm holding up the 6-foot distancing sticker that was on the floor everywhere in the world. And it's what AI can do to us also, right? I mean, this AI can effectively do the same thing. So what is our job now? And by the way, I would argue that we've gotten to the point where compliance is seen as a virtue. People are actually like leaning into compliance. I know you're in England. I'm sure it's virtuous there. How do we get people to understand that there's nothing virtuous about it? Freedom and freedom of speech have value, and we need to push back hard on these things. How do we do that?
Well, look, we have to sell it to the young. Let's not forget that many young men and women, they join the military when they're young. They go to the Peace Corps. They do that for adventure and, to meet men and women their age. You have to show it as adventurous. Remember, they were able to get BLM protesters, rioters, whatever you want to call them. Antifa is able to recruit young people because there's a Joseph Campbell-esque type of, hero's journey that they weave into the story. It's us and them. It's you against tyranny. Well, we have to clearly define the tyranny so that people have a quest. And I know that sounds nebulous and ambiguous, but it's not that hard to do because, on this journey through the UK for a friend's wedding. There's limited internet when you're coming from the United States. Not everything always works the way you want to. And you end up talking to people. And most of the people you talk to have no idea about any of this. So it's about getting those eyeballs off that social media world, that screen world, and getting them out into the open and having them do things. And we had this opportunity with a young person in our lives during COVID. And it was an amazing thing to watch the change in him, just digging a ditch or shooting a shotgun for the first time, or just being out and helping other people. So we have to return to the very thing they're taking away with social media, with AI, and that is a reliance on each other as human beings, rather than a reliance on what Grok or Meta or Schlock or whatever else said. Because we're letting the robots become our nannies.
Schlock or Grok. But it's challenging, though, to figure out why it's so appealing to a certain population of young people and how they seem not able to understand where history takes these things. Inevitably, it's not like it's a guesswork. It's happened and happened and happened and never not happened. And for periods of time, there can be sort of okayness to it, but it always goes a certain direction. It just always does. Mm-hmm. And do we have to? I mean, they tend to be a lot of pointing at the EU, like, oh, life is great there. They know how to live in Europe. Look at the quality of life they have there. Do we need to sort of help people understand that this is not a sustainable way of life there either?
Yeah, I think we do. And, how do you do that, though? I mean, not everyone can afford to travel, or not everyone wants to travel. Obviously, there's MAGA people that have made it clear they'll never go to the UK or they'll never go to France. Mm-hmm. But I think people need to, again, talk to people. And, there's some tools out there that I think are useful. I do find that, even though it's collecting our voice patterns, Twitter or X Spaces is good to connect with people because they're actually audio talking to them. For now, you think it's people. It could be robots in the future. But I think they need to see that everyone around the world, and we travel a lot. I've traveled a lot constantly. Everyone has the same problems, same concerns, and the same fears. But it's about getting back to that human connection. A great example is in my town in Salem. My upstairs neighbor, it's a multifamily for my home there. They were having one of the many LGBTQ holidays about 2 weeks ago, and they're all in my backyard. And look, it was combined Salem, Massachusetts, an LGBTQ holiday, and it's the ultimate Halloween party. But the thing was, I went out there just to, I was curious and wanted to see I thought there were costumes. It's how they dress. But the thing is, they're still worried about paying their rent and everything like that. And they're not trying to, eat my dog or anything. But, the thing is, a lot of lost people that just want to be heard. Now, I'm not naive. I get it. There's some crazy people out there who are prone to violence. But I will say the more people you talk to, the less people Grok, as an example, can give you an opinion on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, contact is always the way forward with human beings. But I want to address this AI problem and the compliance state. And Mark Chankisi, who is a physicist, cognitive psychologist, Mark always says these things happen from the bottom up, that it's not some sort of top-down conspiracy. I don't know. These days, I'm starting to wonder if it's both, because it comes from the top first, and then the bottom enthusiastically embraces it and causes it to catch wind. And let me just sort of explain it. What he's saying is, things like reporting your neighbors for having a barbecue, reporting somebody for not wearing a mask, reporting somebody for not 6 foot distancing, reporting somebody for holding a German in their attic. These are all the same impulses. All the same bullshit. By the same token, it did require a political movement in Germany to get these things going. And what I wonder is, and Susan, maybe you have, or Caleb, you too, because you guys tend to think conspiratorially. Is there any evidence of anyone using AI to sort of increase this compliance state that we all see kind of underway here? Or is it well-meaning people just thinking that things need to be centralized? I mean, I think of the example of public health. Well, we just need to centralize it because it's an emergency. It's like, no, yes, you need to do that, but your totalitarian instincts are bad. There's some bad juju flowing into your instincts that causing you to do things that impinge on people's fundamental freedoms. Susan, you're leaning into the microphone.
When ChatGPT started, I was goofing around with it because I wanted to learn how to use it. And I asked it before, it was during the pandemic. And I asked it, what is Drew's take on the vaccine?
What is my take?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it said, oh, you're very pro-vaccine and blah, blah, blah. It was nothing like what anything you've said, but it was because it hadn't caught up with the time yet. It was like, it was on a timeline. And I thought, well, if I start putting information in here, that's what it's going to spit back out. So, if I take your transcripts from a show or something and I put it into ChatGPT, it's going to keep that information for the future. So
yes,
that's how it's built, right?
Yes.
I don't know, but
it trains on X. That's why it got so weird.
Yeah,
there's so much crazy stuff.
So I didn't
X.
do it because I didn't want to give it any information. But
well, so you don't have a conspiratorial thing.
No,
Caleb,
I do. I think that it's run based on what people put in it, so that if you put stuff in it that's
so you're saying so if some evil force wanted to put some stuff in it, they could get sort of control.
Yeah,
over
and it was a very left wing view in everything it was saying at the time.
All right, Caleb, how about you? Any conspiracy? And then we're going to hear from Brian on what he knows. But I'm going to give you guys a chance to.
Not specifically.
You worried about like
that,
Susan is?
I'm more so worried about the fact that people seem to be ignoring how much power that system prompt has in the people that run these AIs. All they have to do, literally like what happened yesterday, they just changed one line in the system prompt and then everything went crazy. So people really need to be looking at, well, who controls the AI that you're talking to, and what are they setting it up to avoid, and what are they setting it up to promote?
And by the way, Grok has suddenly become like encumbered or something. I use it a lot. In the last 2 days, or today in particular, it's like it takes forever to answer simple questions. It's something's weird going on.
Drew really liked it.
It does. I like it's at war with itself right now. Grok needs a therapist.
All right, so Brian, who's in there? Who's potentially in there? Who's in there? And what can happen to us as a result?
Well, I think I think what we really have to be careful of there's two major things that concern me. The first one is the filtering of things like Grok, which is collecting millions and millions of impressions, popular opinions, emotions, and that's becoming the news. And then what happens, as chronicled in New York Magazine of all things back in, I believe, 2017, called The Death of Journalism, where traditional papers have been taking their cues from clicks, from impressions. So now you can see where if AI is writing the news, which it seems to be, that is spilling over now into traditional papers. And there's a lot of people that still read only traditional papers. So if they see it online and then they see it in whatever local rag they're reading, it becomes reality. The other danger of AI is the rewriting of history. And there's in a great book, I don't remember the author's name, but it's called We Have Been Harmonized, about the current state of the People's Republic of China. They make reference to the fact that historians kind of quietly have nicknamed the People's Republic of China the People's Republic of Amnesia. AI, as it can rewrite history, it can erase history. And then, per your earlier comment, the younger generations have no guide from history. That the whole reason we learn history is to not repeat it. And a great example of this is that in China currently, there's some statistic, I won't quote it, but the majority of young people under 35 have never heard of the Tiananmen Square massacre. And that is the danger of it. And we saw the early attempt at this with the 1619 Project in the rewriting of history. Take away a history, take away language, take away monuments, just like they did in Mao's China. You take away a people's national identity, they have nothing to rally behind. They won't mount a defense against their ultimate, domination.
Interesting. Taking away somebody's religion and culture and family is exactly what was done to the slaves during the slave trade, and that was considered one of the most horrific acts against humans. And yet here we go, in a lighter version of that. And Caleb threw up what Grok had said about me, and they got it. He got it pretty right. I mean, right, Caleb?
Yeah,
that's a pretty good one.
Yeah, it's been updated, obviously. But I mean, yeah, he got it right.
But that's a pretty nuanced sort of thing for a search to say, right? And so it's good. I think that's
actually
pretty close.
So I told it to summarize it in 100 to 300 characters, and its first response was actually much longer and had way more nuance as well. So it's pretty clear now.
Interesting. That is
so you did the deep search type thing.
Yeah. Oh no, I didn't even need to do deep search. This was just the regular Grok chat, but the first response was 7,000 characters.
So you can ask it to narrow down the amount of words and things. It's very responsive, but it's a very powerful instrument. And I worry about us not using Grok and relying on traditional media as well, because traditional media, I know that for sure to be adulterated up and down all the way through. By the way, before I forget, did you see the JFK file, the report on Lee Harvey Oswald having been not an asset, but they were watching him for long periods of time, and they were aware of him. And he debated an anti-communist group on television that was funded by the CIA. I mean, this is crazy information. Did any of that surprise you, or did that unlock anything meaningful for you?
I got to be careful here, because I feel like I already knew a lot of that, but I don't remember where I knew it from. And if you know my past employment, I just have to be careful that I didn't know it from another source. But no, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, we know he went to Russia. And just actually, Dr. Drew, out of curiosity, did this come out today?
I saw it talked about on social media today, so I don't know where it came out. I actually saw a CIA agent sort of doing an analysis of it, and she was saying it's not really. Go ahead. Interesting.
Go ahead.
But she was saying there was nothing astonishing here. But what astonished me was, this guy that has been always described, just this one piece of history. Speaking of rewriting history. This guy described as a lone wolf. How could he have acted alone? Where did he come from? Out of nowhere. Was doing debates on television when we had 3 networks. So people saw him, knew him. CIA was watching him. I don't know. It seems like there's a bunch of information missing. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and it's just like the Ryan Ruth case, the second failed, shooter against Trump. I mean, there's no way this guy made it all the way to Ukraine, was hanging out with the Iranians, made it all the way back to Mar-a-Lago, got a gun onto the golf course, and almost took a shot at our president. That doesn't happen without someone allowing it to happen. So I'm not surprised at all. But I do find the timing interesting.
Disappeared. He's just gone.
Yeah, what happened? I read his whole book.
Yeah, what happened to him? Oh, and
he's still in custody. I think, but I read his whole book, and it's really interesting that they haven't taken it down yet, because there's some damning things about Ukraine on there. But
like what? Give us an example. Come on now. It's in a book. Like what?
Well, so for instance, I didn't know, according to Ryan Ruth, who, he's not the smartest guy, but he seems to have journaled everything, and it lines up with the sniff test, what he was saying. He's very disappointed. He was talking about Ukrainians being rounded up in the street like impressment to go to war. The fact that when he was Ryan Ruth was trying to, like his big Ukraine guy who was over there, he's trying to rally people, hey, let's go fight for Ukraine. The Ukrainian police actually arrested him for doing that. I don't know what that means, but the point is, it really did pierce the harmonious view that some on the pro-Ukraine side would want you to think, like it's this patriotic thing and everyone's rushing to go fight the Russians. No. Apparently,
Oh,
they're being
no.
impressed into it,
Yeah.
according to Ryan Ruth.
Oh, I'm sure. There's a lot of more to be revealed, I would just say. Okay. And
I like that he got
and then
arrested.
finally, we have
Shows
all
he's a
this
nut.
Russiagate stuff out there again. And what's your prediction on how that's going to shake out? Will there be people who get indicted for things as a result of it? Will they always find a way to slip out under the guise of doing the best for the country in their opinion, sort of thing? I mean, we have Brenner and we have Comey bringing in the Steele dossier, knowing full well it was bullshit by a bullshit dude. And then wiretapping a sitting president. Yeah, go ahead.
Why now? I mean, that's the thing. Why is this news now? Yeah, I mean, I find the timing really interesting, being that the Epstein gate is all the news right now. I took the time to go through everything the DOJ has ever published about the Epstein files, and I followed that long ago.
Okay.
And I just see a lot of this as a distraction. Now, this Steele dossier thing, look, there was a whole congressional hearing. I actually know Glenn Simpson. He lived 2 streets away from me. I've actually done work for Fusion GPS. I know a lot about that, about the Trump dossier, different job, but I know a lot about that organization. But I also know that a lot of that stuff has already been churned through. It's obvious that Christopher Steele was double dealing with Perkins Coie and then sold his primary report to Fusion GPS. But these are old topics. But everyone online right now, since this Epstein case was closed, which is just going to be my next episode, I'm watching the distractions come out. Now, the beauty of the row between Elon Musk and President Trump, who I'm a big supporter of President Trump, is that Grok is not going along with the influencers. And there are influencers out there saying, hey, don't focus on this, focus on the threat of Islam against this nation. Okay, and maybe it's a threat. But the thing is, when people are telling me that something is not important, what does it matter? Well, when we're talking about the biggest global trade industry, illicit global trade industry in the world, it's outpaced now illegal weapons. Human trafficking is a big deal. And the fact that, the highest people in several of our governments seem to want to get rid of this case, that should have everyone wondering. So it is important, because how can we move forward unified as a country if we feel like we're being lied to? And I didn't mean to change the subject of the episode, but when I hear a lot of these headlines coming out.
Yeah, I wanted to discuss it with you. I was curious what your point of view was, because we discussed it yesterday. My feeling is that this is what Scott Adams said this morning, that they're sort of winking at us because the sort of the way they're delivering this and dismissing it feels so perfunctory and so out of context of how they've been approaching it up until now. I can't help but conclude they're lying on purpose with a wink to let us know that when we can, we will show you the whole story. But right now, it's too important for us to something, and that something will be revealed. Or does intelligence, or is that me naively thinking that's how I'd like them to behave, and intelligence people never behave like that?
Yeah, I go with the latter. I'm not saying you're naive. You're very well read in for a guy who's never had a clearance. But the thing is, I think Ben Shapiro, regardless of how people feel about him, like him, hate him, whatever, he had a great quote, and that is, Washington, D.C., or the White House, it's 50% House of Cards and 50% Veep. And what I've seen about Donald Trump's leadership style is he does delegate, and then he says, okay, come on, everyone, bring it in. How's it going? Justice, what's going on with Epstein? Oh, we closed the case. Okay. How's that going down? It's fine. And then he sees it, and then he's going to react. But I think he relies on a lot of his cabinet members to do their job, because he's a business leader, and that's a good seat. And I just see a lot
I'll
of.
interrupt you real quick. We have this little delay, so I have to interrupt. But the again, back to Corolla, he was saying that not just he's a businessman and a business leader, but he is a builder and used to selecting and relying on subcontractors. And that's how he does his business. You have to have a sub in there, and you got to let that sub do their job. And if they don't, fired. That's it. Find another one.
Yeah, for sure. And look, we've seen a pattern with Pam Bondi, who's in charge of DOJ, and first with the dossier gate, or binder bimbo gate, whatever you want to call it. But the thing is, we also saw here again, there's no client list. There's nothing. Well, the thing is, it's categorized on the DOJ website as human trafficking, the whole cases. And if you look up human trafficking, you get into something called commercial sex trade to support that category that Epstein was charged with. There has to be a client list. And that's just the fact of the matter, that their definition is going against what they're saying in this press release.
Well, no, but I think we're getting into a little parsing of semantics here, in that everyone believes there are tapes, there's documentation, but everyone believes those are carefully protected, and that a really good criminal wouldn't keep a list. You know what I mean? Wouldn't have the list there that could be stolen or seen or whatever. But
a really good consultant would.
But everyone knows there'll be a flight log, and everyone's aware there's been a flight log, but being on the plane doesn't necessarily mean you're part of the trafficking. But I think I was being more provocative than anything in saying that I don't think there's a list, but I do think there's documentation, and that's what's being protected. And if you let your fantasy run wild, as just using your judgment as an intelligence official, what do you imagine happened?
Analyst,
make a prediction.
Not an official.
Analyst, okay, analyst. Make a prediction on what we would likely find out one day, or if we had access to the real information. What's your prediction on that? Who is being protected and why?
Well, I would start with the client list at Ballard Partners, okay, where Pam Bondi works or worked. And then I would also find out, okay, who else is on the list? Let's not forget, we have Ehud Barak on video hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. We have Randy Andy, as they call him here in the UK, or Prince Andrew, who just announced the other day he now feels safe to travel. So there's a lot of world leaders who may or may not be on that list, but there's a decision being made that, like, okay, if this goes public, yes, it's good for the American people. It's good for support of, America first, of course. But is this going to mess up some other deal that we're not clued into? So my prediction,
what's on that list,
based on the amount of fuel he was buying, based on the amount of flights he was taking, like one a week, back and forth everywhere, we're going to find a lot of people on that list. A man doesn't go from teaching at Dalton to getting invited to Queen Elizabeth's birthday party after disappearing for 4 years, like Jeffrey Epstein did.
And by the way, teaching at Dalton I don't believe he ever graduated college. So what teaching, was he a visiting professor, or what's going on here?
I mean, we could
very,
do so,
very, very odd.
Off camera, we'll have to sit down and talk about this, because we could go for hours.
I would like... Okay, and I know it gets Caleb. Caleb believes he's still alive. He's on some sort of witness protection, right, Caleb?
I was just about to ask. That. Is there any possibility at all, in my theory, that Jeffrey Epstein is alive and in witness protection somewhere, based on the actions of what everyone's doing?
No, because you have a very fractured U.S. government. You still have a lot of people in the FBI, or across many of the law enforcement arms of the U.S. government, who just can't keep a secret, who are on different sides of the political aisle. And it's been my experience that we used to make a joke when I used to work in Down the River, as we called it, where I would be writing a report and I'd say, should I hit send or should I wait for CNN to report this? So, I just don't think they can keep
that's
that
the
secret.
one biggest flaw in my theory is that I don't think they could keep the secret. Like I know they keep most people in witness protection. They're able to keep them safe as far as we know. But with someone this prominent and this big and this valuable, that story would never stay gone.
And he's more valuable.
I wonder, you tell me if I'm right. I smell something about the Middle East. Something about maybe Saudi Arabia and our relationships with them, or something in that zone, and sort of maybe, well, but not Israel. Israel in the sense that it could upset the Abraham Accord when they're trying to build the Abraham Accord. Something in that zone is sort of what my spidey sense tell me. Otherwise, why protect everybody? Why it's so let the cards fall where they may. Let the chips fall. Who said that? Let the chips fall where they may. Elon Musk. Let the chips fall where they may. That's his big statement.
I'm glad you brought it up on Saudi Arabia, because that is the one country no one ever wants to talk about. And if you think about, I think you hit a really good point. And let's not forget there were early reports or documentaries about Epstein that he may or may not have been doing gray arms dealing in some Middle Eastern country.
And Khashoggi, did you hear all the stuff about Khashoggi today? Khashoggi was running something for the CIA.
Not today, no.
I mean, I don't know if I believe it or not, but some crazy stuff came through about him, and I'm like, oh boy, no wonder they. And so, yeah, I think you're right. I think there's something there, and we need them bad. And it could be as simple as the Crown Prince calling somebody and going, "Don't do this." It's that simple. I don't know.
There's a lot of power there. Yep.
Yeah, or Qatar or something. Whatever you call it now, Qatar or whatever.
Well, let's not forget that nothing happens. Nothing happens in the Arabic-speaking Middle East, whether it's media, whether it's business deals, without the king's approval. Okay, and so if you look at how many boards the royal family sits on, and let's not forget, there's like 4,000 princes. I used to actually have one as a client who was 2 from the top, and they have amazing amounts of power that spans the Middle East and into even parts of Iran, because it's more than being the center of Islam. It's about the fact that they have the most money.
Well, and think about just from a pragmatic standpoint of U.S. security. I mean, this is a work in progress. We need them. They really need them. It seems to me, Saudi. And we don't even know the layers publicly of to the degree to which we need them. And my guess is there's that it's not an evil intent on anybody's part. It's just a pragmatic thing that if they're going to kind of get the things right in the Middle East, you got to have Saudi Arabia and probably the UAE and probably Qatar or whatever. And I don't know, and to embarrass these people or to prosecute them at a time. Very complicated.
I'm really impressed you mentioned Saudi Arabia, and let's not forget Qatar is just their bank. It's on the peninsula. It's all Saudi Arabia. No matter where you go, it's all Saudi Arabia. No matter what. I think
our relationship and the new Crown Prince has sort of been a reasonable guy, a smart guy, pro-U.S. and things are better with them now, but it all feels very, I feel like I understand our relationship with France. I understand our relationship with England. I don't understand our relationship with Saudi Arabia. It all seems very covert and kind of not fully out in the public. And so immediately I go, something's going on there.
Can I throw something? And I know Caleb will love this. I tweeted about this a few weeks ago.
Okay, good.
But let's not forget now, again, like I think I have my theories on why the bombing in Iran had to happen. I think President Trump got put into an impossible position. I think he came out of it very wisely by not putting boots on the ground and making that war end through the bombing so far. But one thing that's underreported is that prior to that, a few weeks before that occurred, it was announced that Saudi Arabia and the United States were working on this massive new nuclear energy proposal, which would supply to most of the Middle East. And I'm just saying their only competition was Iran. There you go, Caleb.
It all ties together.
There's that, and it does all tie together. But oh shit, I lost my train of thought. I was going to tell you one. Oh yeah, one last thing. You said the Iran thing came out wise from the Iran deal so far, and it's interesting to me that temporality, time, does not figure prominently enough into the public's mind because. I want the Epstein results now. I want them now. I want the list now. It's like, there may not, temporality. And Trump, to me, seems like one of these guys that really uses temporality. He's like, he just is, doesn't make any decisions until he has to. Certain things are quick and certain things aren't. Timing, I don't want to say timing is everything because that's too simplistic, but the public needs to get used to the idea that there's an optimal temporality to all these decisions. And that's what I'm saying may be going on with Epstein. That's all I'm saying. I'm going to leave it with that. Brian, as always, enlightening. We appreciate it. Tell people where to go and what you're going to be talking about.
Absolutely. You can find me on dailyclout.io. Just go to our shows. You'll see my angry face there for Investigate Everything. It's also on Rumble on dailyclout.io's Rumble channel. Next thing we're going to be talking, I got to talk about Epstein. I'm going to have to. And then the other thing is I'm on X at Brian O'Shea SPI, where I announce a lot of the things I do. And who knows where I'll be next. And don't forget to head on over to my Substack at brianoshea.substack.com, where I will be posting more stuff, especially about Epstein, as soon as I get back from the lovely UK.
Speaking of lovely, let's give a nod to your brilliant wife. Where do they find Naomi?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Naomi can also be found on Daily Clout. She's on dailyclout.io, and she is she just said it. Outspoken with Naomi Wolf on Substack, and on X she is at Naomi R. Wolf on X. Sorry.
Hope to see you guys very soon. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, we're going to do a little sidebar before we go to David Freiheit, also known as Viva Frei. I'll be here in about 20 minutes. Brady Bates, you can follow him on the 50 bar. Also, it's on X and on Instagram, official 50 bar. He's going to have to explain to us what that's all about. But we're going to talk a little bit about vaping and some new legislation there and my position on this, and we'll get right to it after this. What's so special about Paleo Valley's grass-fed and finished bone broth and superfood bars? Well, everything. All are delicious, high in nutrients, low in calories, and contain nothing artificial. Co-founder Autumn Smith on what goes into every superfood bar.
So we have bone broth protein powder, and then we've added other superfoods, cashew butter, we have spirulina in there, acerola, broccoli powder, kale, blueberries. And so it really is kind of just an infusion of superfoods with every bite.
And then there's the extraordinary bone broth protein made with an ancestral approach that boosts our collagen intake.
Collagen is something that's gone by the wayside in our modern diet because we don't eat nose to tail anymore, but it was something we ate a lot of, and it has so many benefits. So if you have sagging skin, joint pain, gut issues, your decreased bone mineral density, slow to heal your wounds, slow recovery, these are all things that collagen can dramatically improve. If we're not giving our body the building blocks to produce it, we just age more rapidly. It also improves sleep, improves blood sugar control. So it's essentially like the Swiss Army knife of healthy aging.
Like I said, Paleo Valley's bone broth is something special. Make Paleo Valley part of your longevity regimen. Go to drdrew.com/Paleo Valley for 20% off when you subscribe and 15% off your first order. That is drdrew.com/Paleo Valley. We are stocking up this summer with products from our friend at Active Skin Repair. This, of course, is the Hydrogel Hypochlorous Acid. It also comes in a spray. It's great for adults, children, kids. Has an antimicrobial. That's the secret ingredient, which is hypochlorous acid. It's been used in hospital for years. It's also a great soothing agent for bug bites, wounds, sunburns, which I may be using in a few minutes. Also, speaking of sunburns, I use their hyaluronic acids hydrating serum every day, and I certainly will be using it as soon as I get out of the sun. So if you'd like to stock up this summer, these are great products. Go to drdrew.com/skin repair to get a discount off of what is already a great price.
Ask Dr. Drew.
I have no idea who Dr. Drew is.
He's been watching a lot of Dr. Drew lately.
Dr. Drew.
And weight loss and gum loss. The wellness company has got you covered with some new products. TWC, the drop is for aggressive appetite control. It comes in an easy-to-use liquid drop, no prescription, no painful shots. It is an oral peptide called retardrotide. It's hard to pronounce. I have used it. It really mimics the way the body naturally loses weight. It's designed to support faster, more focused weight loss, similar mechanisms to the GLP-1s. And when combined with healthy eating and exercise, not a bad plan for a lot of people. And then Smile is a breakthrough fluoride-free peptide toothpaste, gently whitens and reverses gum loss, actually rebuilding tissue at its source. People are reporting great results with this. Proprietary blend, again, of peptides that remineralizes, and there's also soothing botanicals in there. Go to drdrew.com/TWC for more information on Drop and Smile, and check out other new and innovative solution for hair loss called Roots while you're there. TWC has really high quality product. That is drdrew.com/TWC, where you can get 10% off. And these are not, some the drops and things a little bit pricey, but get that 10% discount. It kind of brings it into line. And because these things really work and they're not cheap to manufacture and produce, our CEO is a chemical engineer and he's very careful with all this stuff. And a really interesting privilege to be a part of all that. So that's all interesting. Don't forget Fatty. Don't forget VShredMD, drdrew.com/VShredMD for the NR Boost and the Senesync, both all stuff that really I am so pleased to be here representing. And then, of course, our friends at the Skin Repair, Active Skin Repair. Oh, here, Susan gave me the Senesync. This is one of our products here. These are things I designed that I thought people should have access to. They should be priced properly. They should be sourced carefully. And you got to get at, there's Susan. Got to get at this because we source it carefully and it runs out very quickly. Okay, now we are going to switch topics. Speaking of other things you can do for your health, getting off cigarettes. And let me just say my position, as I've always stated it, which is that every piece of data that has ever been out there always shows that vaping nicotine is the best way to get off cigarettes. And nicotine is a harmless compound. In fact, it might be good for you, much the way caffeine has been found to be good for you. It's certainly a good appetite suppressant. And people should not be afraid of getting off whatever they have to do to get off cigarettes. There's been controversy around vaping from my position. The government's put out some really interesting research, and maybe Brady, who's about to join us, will be able to sort of refute some of it, that showed you can get some damage to the lining of the airways and whatnot, things that are concerning that you shouldn't be exposed to if you don't have to be. Nowhere near the damage and the danger of cigarettes, okay? Cigarettes is tobacco is what is dangerous. And when people talk about vaping in adolescents, yes, you don't want to have all these flavored things that hook kids on nicotine, but most of the vaping in adolescents is actually weed, and people don't seem to understand that. So Brady is the founder of 50 Bar, building the first large-scale U.S. vape manufacturing supply chain. Brady, thank you for coming. Appreciate you being here. Tell us about your products.
Thanks for having
and
me.
also go at my opinion. Tell me if my opinion is good or bad, or were you want to assail it or support it? Go ahead.
No, I think you have a great opinion. But first, I want to start with you and Psycho Mike, when I was a kid on Loveline, shaped my childhood. So I deeply, deeply appreciate that. Big fan of you and Psycho Mike. So,
scary. Yeah, I think that Mike has an imprint on your brain. Now I'm going to have to go.
Those conversations got crazy. Yeah. Those conversations got crazy. But yeah, I think from my standpoint, the frustrating part is that this is a healthier alternative to smoking. I think that anyone can, with a right-sized brain, can say that this is something that we are able to say without a shadow of a doubt that smoking is a killer. 480,000 people a year are dying from smoking-related illnesses still. And the frustrating part for me is that we have a solution to that, at least something that can curb those numbers and bring them down. And instead, day in and day out, I'm constantly fighting from a legislative side, from lobbying by big tobacco or big pharma, whoever it may be, trying to survive in this crazy world of the corporatization of everything. And so it's a frustrating place that we find ourselves in, but that's the America we live in now. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with 50 Bar is change that a little bit, empower the small to medium-sized businesses to come to America or come back to America and do what we got to do to rebuild that core business in America.
And again, to reiterate, every piece of medical literature shows the most effective way to stop cigarettes is vaping tobacco. That's every single study I've ever read on it. And hands down, not even by a little bit, as opposed to any other mechanisms. And yet it's completely vilified. So Caleb had put something up here. This is about you taking China out of the equation of the vaping manufacturing. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty simple. We started in this industry. I started about 13 years ago. There was various manufacturers all throughout the country. Most of us at that point, because the industry was so new, we didn't know what we were doing or how to do it. So we were mixing in the back of our then vape shops. There were specialty stores to vaping. And as time progressed, we started building out manufacturing facilities that were certified by the FDA through GMPC, in clean rooms and all sorts of things. So what happened was, though, is when the PMTA process kicked in, that basically forced most of the market off the market. But the way that the PMTA was written allowed for China to capitalize off the new technology, which is the disposables. And that's why we're seeing such an influx in the market the last 4 or 5 years with the Chinese disposables, is because of the way the PMTA was written. So what we're trying to do is just flip it back the other way. We know that there's a huge reliance on China for components, for batteries, for plastic, for the metal wiring, all of that stuff. We rely on them right now to get those components over to us. But what we're doing at 50 Bar is that we're then finishing that product here in the States. So currently right now, we're partially assembling that device, and then we're taking that and filling it with American ingredients and making sure that it's going through the good manufacturing practices to ensure the safety of that product.
And I understand there's been some legislation in Texas lately that was somewhat of a breakthrough.
Yeah, so we've, again, small, medium to sized business involved in large lobbying, which has been a whole nother side of this thing that has turned into an animal, but I've actually really enjoyed it. Getting to understand how things work and how laws are made has been fascinating. But yeah, so what we've done is we're trying to be proactive. So I'm trying to go out and engage the White House, engage the FDA, engage local senators and congressmen and women to be able to explain to them that this process doesn't need to be finished in China. We can do this here in the States. And by doing that here in the States, we have the potential of bringing a $20 billion a year industry back to America, or to America, I should say. And so it's nothing that we should be taking lightly. This is something that politicians and the people on the other side, the bigger tobacco companies, should really look into. And I saw some encouraging information actually this morning from PMI that they're invested into America. They've pledged $800 million into facilities here to produce their Zyn products, which I'm all for. I think that this is one of those opportunities, as we're trying to put America first and be selfish in a way, to force this thing back to America for multiple reasons, but most importantly, transparency into the supply chain of the consumable material that's going into and being ingested by humans.
You said it's fascinating to see how the laws are made. You mean it's not frustrating? You're not crestfallen looking at the reality of all that?
Yes, it's awful at points. It's really when I say fascinated, it's because before I went into that, I was pretty naive to the process, right? I think like most people are.
Sure.
I was just a business owner, just paid my taxes and kind of just shut up and did what I had to do to survive. But now getting involved in the other side, it's a whole nother world that people live in. And it's fascinating because reason does win some of the time. We can see that with some of the legislation that was passed this year, because I'm not a multinational conglomerate, big tobacco business. I'm nowhere near those numbers. But I was still able to and have been able to make an impact through the lobbying effort. So I hold hope that common sense still wins. And I think that it is disheartening at points, though, when you're seeing certain markets like North Carolina, they're beholding to a registry bill, which is just so not what the market needs right now. Overregulation is going to cause more black market and more illicit products coming through the ports.
Well, that was my other question. What to do with the adolescent use and the flavored stuff and the weed vaping? What do you have a plan there?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing, unfortunately, at this point, because you were talking about it on a podcast you did a while back about the EVALI breakout that happened with the illicit THC carts. There's not much we can do about the crossover that's taking place when those things come out. For whatever reason, the average person doesn't care to understand that there's multiple products that are vapable. And they don't understand that came from a vitamin E acetate outbreak, like you talked about, that was causing issues in people's lungs. So that part of it is very tricky. As far as the adolescent, youth usage, the latest results from the CDC show that in 2017, we were at an all-time high of 25% youth access to these products. And since then, it's dropped substantially. I mean, it's down under 7%, I believe was what the last study that came out. So the industry should be rewarded for that. And the store level should be rewarded for that we are curbing that issue and continuing to curb that issue. But there's still more things that we can be doing as a business. And we are taking steps as a business to ensure that this is getting in the hands of adults and not marketing towards children. But we need to work hand in hand with government and understand where's the line in the sand for them. Because I personally have a line in the sand, but government sometimes has a different opinion than the average person. So that's why we're working tightly with them, trying to figure out, what is the line in the sand? Because adults need access to flavors. There's no question in that's part of the magic that happens when you start vaping. You find your flavor that'll get you off combustible cigarettes and into a vapor product. The same way as Zin's working for people who chew tobacco, right? There's 10 flavors that were approved for Zyn products, which I'm all for that. I think there should be flavored on the market, but we need to figure out a way to work collectively to take on this issue. This is not it's not specifically to industry or government to handle this issue. It needs to be worked on together. And I still think the industry's done a fair job over the last 4 or 5 years of bringing that rate down substantially.
The 50 bar on X, where can people go to read more, to follow you, to figure out where they stand with this, or if they want products for that matter?
Yeah, so the 50bar.com is a good resource. That's our website. We keep things pretty up to date on there. Official 50 bar on Instagram and Twitter. And then my personal Twitter, which is just starting to get a following. Hopefully it'll amass some more, is Brady M. Bates at Twitter, or X, I should say. And yeah, we're constantly updating and keeping people in the loop with what's going on, because it's a fascinating thing. This is the new reality for the new American dream.
Brady, thank you for joining me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
You got it. All right. The one and only Viva Frei, is he there now, or we're still waiting on his arrival? He's here. Okay. Viva just finished his show. I'm guessing he rated our whole setup over on Rumble. Let me give you the particular.
Don't make me feel bad.
If you didn't, Viva, you didn't think of that this time? David Freiheit, I'm better known as Viva Frei, lawyer, host of Viva Frei on Rumble and locals.com. YouTube, more at vivafrei.com. And there's also Viva and Barnes. Viva, welcome back.
How's it going, Drew? We rated Candace today because I send over my crowd because it works so well when our two respective audiences intersect in the comment section.
Doesn't it combust in some way? Is there some sort of conflict?
How dare you?
It was funny. I had on Reverend Tim, that's his name, Reverend Tim Christensen. And geez Louise, I just screwed up his last name. Anyhow, so we had Candace's name came up, and so I figured, in fairness, send everybody over there so they can get a dose of Candace Owens. But yes,
you do not need to justify whatever you're
Candace?
doing.
I didn't know that. Ah, shit.
Well, she starts now, I think, right? Is she on now?
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
It made sense. Christopher, for goodness sake, it's Reverend Tim Christopher. I'm okay. There you go.
No, so my brain works too. Don't worry. Those of us with OCD and aging, it's not a pretty sight, and anxiety. True. It's all the three of us. I'm just saying that we share these properties.
He's
the three of the two of us.
We are.
I understand, but I've been aware that Anyway, so what is on your mind these days? Are you what is sort of occupying you? I'm just curious what you're upset about, what you're thinking about. Go ahead.
Well, speaking of OCD, I've been mildly obsessing over what I think is an unforced error of the Trump administration. I'm trying to make sense of the Epstein.
Debacle. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. And so I've been talking about it. I've been called a grifter for talking about it, doing it for clicks, as if that's when you talk about it, when people want you to talk about it, they pat you on the back for exposing the news.
Yeah.
When you talk about it, when some people don't want to talk about it, then you become a grifter and they hurl all sorts of insults at you. But I don't understand what in the name of holy hell is going on, and I'm waiting for it to make sense. But I'll be highlighting what doesn't make sense.
I just described my theory to an intelligence consultant. And my theory is, you tell me if there's anything at all that rings accurate for you, that the way Scott Adams describes the behavior of Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, their change in direction is so abrupt and so extreme that they seem to be kind of winking at us like, just accept, it's nothing to here's nothing to see here. But my belief is they're lying with intention because there's something that they one day will explain to us that will explain why they lied. And it won't be too far in the future. I kind of have a suspicion too, that like they're doing it. And when they, because what I was saying also is temporality never figures into people's thinking anymore. It's like, I want to know now, damn it. I want to know right now. As opposed to, we got you. But there's a compelling strategic reason we got to lie to you right now. And my instinct is it has something to do with Middle East, and I would put my finger on Saudi Arabia. Like something's going on in terms of the balance of the power there that they need to protect as they begin to expand the Abraham Accord. That's my pure guess, and simple guessing.
The internet would call that a, quote, cope. Like that's how people cope with when the people they trust are doing something that they no longer believe. And in order to make sense of why the people they trust might be being less than transparent with them, there's got to be, call it a cope. Some people are saying that they're so obvious in their demeanor that they're trying to let people know that they are being coerced-ish potentially into covering things up. The problem with that theory, and I'm glad Scott Adams brought it up because he's quite insightful, and at least I don't have to propose the theory. I do adhere to the belief that you don't have to tell the truth, but you can't lie. And so also strategically, they didn't have to tell the truth, but they should not have lied if that is indeed what's going on right now, because in so lying, you can't cover up prior statements and you can't hide what, the statements Trump has made, Bondi's made, everybody. So I would have, if that's the case, they have to keep it under seals while they finish up some certain geopolitical negotiations. Fine. Say nothing. The FBI is the master at saying nothing. We cannot confirm on the existence of any investigation, and people would not have a problem. And if the goal were to get people to stop asking questions, that would be the easiest way to do it. But to have this as of yet unexplained, unsigned, undated document memo, that if it were written in an attempt to undermine Kash Patel's prior statements, it couldn't have been better drafted, leaked to Axios on Sunday, July 6th, then updated to the DOJ website on Monday, July 7th. And no explanation for why it's an undated, unsigned document. No one's taken responsibility for it. Nothing could make sense about it. And the more they tell people to shut up, sit down, the more it doesn't make sense. And the more, at least the stubborn ones of us with OCD, GAD, and ODD, which is oppositional defiance disorder, are going to keep talking about it. But I know I'm down with all forget the three-letter agencies. I'm down with the three-letter mental issues, but
disorders.
I
would argue that ODD, although your wife may beg to differ, I would argue that ODD is one you do not have.
Okay, that's cool. Actually, that's good. But someone's been saying our kid has it, and it's inherited, and generational. But ODD, oppositional defiance. I was told that means like just mouthing off to authority figures when you're a kid.
It has, there's a spectrum to it, like everything, right? And severe ODD is sort of considered a precursor to sociopathy sometimes. And it can pass also. You can have ODD that passes, because it can be just a mouthy kid, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. So it's a hard one to kind of, and there are plenty of adults with ODD right now, believe me, plenty. And you ain't one of them. Again, though your wife may beg to differ. So
I thought it was a cool acronym for like wanting to question authority, which I've always done since a child. But none of it makes sense. What was the latest? Trump sort of shutting down the question of the reporter, which came a day and a half after the release of the memo, struck me as being, I realize what it is that Trump is trying to protect his team and make it look like he's owning the situation that I think he was thrust into.
Yeah.
My suspicion, if I'm going to write a Jean Le Carré novel, is that they leaked intended to undermine the two most prominent figures of the populist movement who are now Trump's FBI. And by putting out this theory that contradicts their deeply held and sincerely held positions for years, basically allow the FBI is a conspiracy theorist peddling, Epstein stuff. And so,
I like that.
Yeah, so they have to say, yeah, we were wrong the entire time and eat our words, or they know that they're right, which is my belief, but cannot say it right now because they are employees of the state and they don't get to share their opinions. They get to toe the line of the state.
I love it. I like that. So, and back to your oppositional defiance, I sometimes think to myself, so many of us had that same quality in the 60s, 70s, and 80s that whether it was the rock and roll movement or the new wave or the grunge and the punk and all these things, that the musical movements and the cultures that grew up around them were all essentially trying to throw off the yoke of a previous generation that didn't fit our world at all. I feel like we've unleashed some trouble as a result of that we did not anticipate. I find myself very often thinking to myself, this is not what we intended at all. Like some of the stuff I see around, I was just thinking today about some of the sexual behaviors that are being advocated in some of the podcasts and some of the, something on Love Island freaked me out. They were the way they were talking about things. And I thought, what we were doing was trying to have a free conversation about something that had been pushed down. You weren't allowed to talk about it, so people could make healthier choices with their sexuality, because there was this disease, AIDS, that was very dangerous, and people needed to understand what an STD was and how these things worked, and there's no reason we shouldn't talk about it. This isn't what I intended at all. I intended that, but not Love Island.
I made a joke. I don't know why I actually caught a segment of Love Island where they were making out, like they were going blindfolded and just like sloppy, disgusting dog kisses on all of the candidates. And like they call this Love Island. I mean, they should call it Whore Island, and not because they're men or women, whichever one was sexy. Call it Whore Island. Don't try to cloak the whorism in love. The Love Island. It was so disgusting. And I don't know how it came up with my kids watching, but I was like, this is not how adults act, A. B, it's a disgusting germ-filled cesspool, all of their mouths, and they just went and shared it across all of the entire room. And they do it in such a So I didn't watch the show. Then we had to I was going to try to put on documentary on
Clearly,
Epstein. Going to go from bad to worse.
Clearly, your OCD takes precedent of anything approximating ODD. So you're and by the way, we were noticing one thing you didn't see is fast forward like a day or two in that show after what you saw, and they all had big herpetic lesions on their lips.
That's
right.
wild.
Sorry, Viva. So
kids, get married young, stay young, and you can't stay young, but stay married. Keep your schmeckles in your pants.
Yeah. It is again, but you're making my point one more time, which was that the casting off. I was looking. What was I looking at? Some movie or television show. Oh, it was. I think it was like. What was the stupid movie with John Belushi about the fraternity? Animal House. I think it was Animal House. And the adults, the middle-aged and older adults that were portrayed in that film, it's like, those were the people we were pushing back on. That was not us. We were something different. And obviously Animal House was an extreme sort of credo for all that. It wasn't realistic at the time. But we did. Oh, there you are, quoted up there, Viva. Keep your schmeckle in your pants.
Trademark, but it's copyright.
We lost your. Go ahead. No, it's copyright.
Not trademark.
So how are things in the great state of Florida? Are they still as free as ever, or is the immigrants from the Mid-Atlantic having an impact on the situation there in Florida.
Jokingly say there's more New Yorkers and New Jerseyites here than Floridians, but no, Florida's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm obsessed. I keep going back to the Trump administration. They've opened up Alcatraz, the so-called alligator Alcatraz. They've got, I actually want to drive down there. It's about an hour and 3/4. And if I can not be assured that I would have access, but be assured I wouldn't be prosecuted for trespass, I'd go down and have a look. But things are going well. And by and large, there's some big wins for the administration. And not the least of which is getting the border under control and getting the courts to tamp down on their insanity a little bit. But no, things in Florida are good. We're lucky. The outcome of the election was the best for Florida in that we kept Ron DeSantis as governor and got Donald Trump as president. And no complaints.
And so, Viva is my sort of source for many things Florida. Dave Rubin and Viva are my two Floridian friends that keep trying to get us to move down there. And we're coming in August. We're going to be there for a little while. And we're coming in November too. And that's probably won't have time to see you, frankly. But I also get all my Canadian information from Viva Frei are you expatriated yet? Are you an illegal immigrant? What's your sort of status? Your green card? What should we do with you?
Green card yet, but the wheels are in motion, Jerry. But yeah,
Okay.
I feel bad saying that I don't want to go back to Canada. Canada's not a place to go back to. And I'm following what's going on in Canada. It's going from bad to worse. Yeah. There was Rebel News. I had on a journalist, Alexa Lavoie, on Monday, who was out there documenting, the pro-Palestinian protests and then the public prayers that they have afterwards, which oddly enough in Montreal, they have right in front of the Basilica Notre Dame, which is the Église Notre Dame, the replica of the French one. And this journalist, Alexa Lavoie, is just filming and gets obstructed by some of the prayers or the people praying. And the police, 6 big burly men carrying guns, surround her and threaten her with arrest for documenting public prayer in a public place, done for political purposes. And every day you look back and see what's going on in Canada, and it's going from bad to worse. But they sit there saying, well, at least we don't have Trump. We've got Carney, and they think they're happy in their misery because they've got a bigger boogeyman in their own minds, when in reality, they're living in a frickin' prison that's being overtaken by, I say, open borders, overrun by people who are not from Canada, don't share Canadian values, and the police siding with the side of the people who are the ones that are obviously the more scary to pick on the Canadian journalists who they know are the easier ones to bully. So Canada's not going in the right direction. It's going in the wrong direction fast.
Well, I now have spoken to a couple of leaders, I would call them, from both, I believe, Saskatchewan and definitely Alberta, that are really wanting to be a 51st or 52nd part of the United States. I mean, that movement in the central part of the country is for real. It's not a. I don't know what the percentage is, but the people that are interested are very interested in it.
I presume you spoke with Danielle Smith. She's the premier of Alberta.
No, these were sort of people that were politically active, sort of developing this movement.
It is. People will understand it. It is. You had Brexit, then you had, what else did they have? You had a bunch of exits where people wanted to leave the oppressive
Brexit
union.
Is talked about. Mm-hmm.
Say that again.
Frexit is even talked about from French. Frexit. Yeah.
There was Italexit. I don't think there's a Germexit yet, and that one sounds particularly good. But there is, in Canada, there was a movement for Quebec to separate from Canada, and it was called the Separatist Movement. Two referendum. Yeah. 96, and that fell by the wayside when they lost the second time. The Liberal portion of Canada has been oppressing and exploiting the energy provinces, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, for the longest of times. Yep. And for those who don't appreciate, Quebec, Ontario basically dictate the government of Canada. And so you have the Maritimes, which, for whatever the reason, you got the Northwest Territories, which votes Liberal for whatever the reason. And then you've got Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, the Texas-like provinces of the country of Canada. And there's been a Wexit, which is the separation of the West from Canada, because you've got a federal government that is liberal for the last 10 years, oppressive, imposes legislation that cripples the economies of these energy-rich provinces while stealing their revenues for being rich provinces to redistribute them to the poorer provinces, so-called, with these equalization payments. And it was one of the other good predictions that I made before the election. I said, if the Liberals win, expect to see this movement amplified on steroids, because you're going to have at least another 4 years now of the Liberals doing exactly what they did. And you're seeing it. And now you're seeing the federal government of Canada, 3 passport-carrying globalist whore Mark Carney, looking to get opinions and memos and petition the courts to prevent Alberta from discussing secession. Well, I don't think they want to be the 51st state, but I think they absolutely want to secede from Canada and strike their own energy agreements with America. And I actually think that's kind of what Trump wanted, sort of implicitly endorsed Mark Carney.
Speaking of Trump and intelligence operations, the Russiagate data that's out, they're going to investigate. It seems like they're going to take a good look at Comey and Brenner. What are your opinions about what's being uncovered there?
I won't swear on your show out of respect. Comey should be in effing jail already, if only for the 86-47. They're going to go back to Russiagate. Whoop-de-doo. We'll see what happens. They've announced a criminal inquiry. We'll see if charges come. We'll see if convictions come. It's a long way down the road. Is this like the bone to throw to the dog after the Epstein debacle? Bottom line, Comey should have been investigated and charged with his 86-47, period. No, whether or not there's any internal disciplinary stuff, I don't care. We didn't see it. We don't know. Might have happened. Irrelevant. Charges. His daughter should have been pulled off the P. Diddy, what they call the prosecution, what I call a cover-up, and I was right on that prediction as well. They'll get him on 2 lowly nothing charges. He gets off on the sex trafficking. Of course, he too is sex trafficking to himself, allegedly, according to the prosecution. And then, everyone goes to bed happy that night. So, yeah, investigate them. We all know that they were involved in rampant criminality. It was the biggest coup attempt in the history of America. And, the collusion of the media to cover it up for so long. So better late than never, but something better come of it other than an investigation. No charges can be brought because of statute of limitations, whatever, or charges brought, minimal charges, slap on the wrist, like Kevin Kleinsmith, the FBI lawyer who falsified evidence, submitted it to a secret FISA court in order to get the spy warrants on Carter Page. He got a year deferred disbarment and nothing. They break the law. It would send normal people to jail for decades. They don't even get a slap on the wrist, and they get a good book deal and a CNN gig afterwards.
That is really interesting. Well, Viva, thank you so much. Where should people find you other than vivafrei.com? Tell me about Viva and Barnes. Tell us about all your stuff.
Sunday nights, we have the best legal show out there, Viva and Barnes Law for the People. It's across all platforms, but if you want to support the work that Barnes and I do, vivabarneslaw.locals.com. I'm looking for my kids' book. I've got a kids' book. Drew, give me 1 second. 1 second.
Okay, all right. Ooh, look at that picture of Viva back there.
Here we go. Lobster
returns it's upside down
on Amazon. It is illustrated by the daughter of a community member in Locals. And when I'm not singing and starting fights over Epstein stuff, I wrote a kid's book. But no, if you put in Viva Frei on the internet, you'll get pretty much everything. And Twitter is where I really let off some steam. So at the Viva Frei.
And lovely book. And your wife has a book on educating kids on neuroscience, which I loved also as well.
It's amazing. She did that with a friend. It's called The Neuron? Curious Neuron. I'm pretty sure it's called The Curious Neuron. Curious Neuron. It's a coloring book and it explores the brain. My wife is a neuroscientist. And she did that. And she's actually the one who put it together because, I come up with the story, but putting this in format and publishing on Amazon self-publish, I wouldn't have had the patience to do it, but she did it. Other than that, homeschooling 1 kid, raising 3, and trying to stay sane in a world that is on fire.
Well, I'm glad to have you as a teammate, and it's always a pleasure to see you. And thank you for coming and joining us today.
For having me anytime, every time.
All right, Viva. Thank you, buddy. All right, let's take a look at what's coming up here.
He's so fun.
He is fun. We got to go see them when we're in Florida. We have to. Layla was supposed to be in today. She got sick, couldn't make it, so she's been rescheduled for the 16th. Jenny McCarthy is still on for the 17th. Philip Bugman on 15th. Kennedy on the 29th. Got a lot of guests coming up here. As always, Emily Barsh doing an amazing job getting our booking done. And if you'd like anybody to suggest, contact drdrew.com. Susan, anything before I wrap this up?
No.
Let me see what you guys are saying on the rants. Caleb, you, neuroscience is fun. Thank you.
You're going on Tim Pool's podcast.
Mark, yes, I'm going to go on Tim Pool. I've got to go to West Virginia tomorrow and stay in their little Holiday Inn, as this is their way. Although they've moved, I guess.
You're at a better place.
No, it was a Days Inn before. Now it's a Holiday. It's a Holiday Inn Express. No, Holiday Inn Express. And I'm happy to be there.
Middle of nowhere.
Well, it's in the, I don't know if they're.
Why don't you tell everybody where you're going to go?
Well,
I was about to use my 7-second delay here. Do you need to give the address?
I don't think I'm supposed to. No, I'm not. I don't think I'm supposed to because
you're not.
Because it's no longer out in the middle of nowhere. At least I'm not staying in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So
I won't be there to protect you.
I know it's going to be tough. It's going to be really rough. All right, everybody. It's been a great week. We're going to, again, I'm off tomorrow because I'm going to West Virginia, and we appreciate you all being here. We appreciate our guests. Wait, come in. There she is. Susan's popping in. Hi, Rumble ranters. There they are. Go ahead, have at it, Salty, or
Hair's not done.
The Real Man there. We've got Molten Salt and all those guys in there chatting it up. Yeah, join us in the Rumble Rants. That's a very lively group there. The Real Man is yelling at you, Susan. There you are.
Know. Hi. The Real Man. Are you a real man?
Molten is saying thank you as well. Okay, well, in any event, I'm going to be on the road, and we will see you guys.
No Love Island tonight, Drew. I'm so sorry.
I know Susan is devastated.
I'm okay. I'm just totally mesmerized by this whole, this whole phenomenon.
I'm mad at Kat Timp because she introduced Susan to it, and that has been...
Yeah, but it's there. It's
not
like,
enhanced our
aren't
life.
you glad you know what it is, though? Because if you heard about it, you'd be like, what? What's that?
Yeah.
So we've been educated.
See, I didn't watch. Right. My wife watched 90 Day Fiancé for a couple years, and I never watched it. And then I heard you and Susan talking about it. Now we watch every possible spinoff of 90 Day Fiancé there is. It's constantly on.
Yes.
And the past 2 weeks, I've been hearing about Love Island from 2 or 3 different friends talking about it. I'm like, no,
you'll be delighted
not
to
another
know,
one.
Caleb. We met Shekinah and
I saw that.
Blanking on his name. Yeah.
Shekinah and oh God, what's his name?
He was lovely, actually. I enjoyed me. We're going to go see his comedy because he's coming to Pasadena.
I can't remember his name. They have the weirdest names, but this show makes Sarper. This makes 90 Day Fiancé look sort of dumb and tame. Like,
isn't it? Which now is not a bad thing necessarily.
Now we're desensitized by this Love Island, and when we go back to 90 Day Fiancé, it's like
truly desensitized.
It's just a bunch of old people fighting. Like,
isn't it strange how
what's that?
Because Taylor and we've watched almost every episode of 90 Day Fiancé now. Isn't it strange how Shekinah and Sarper have turned out to be the best couple of all when you least expected that at the beginning? Like, they seem real tight.
Yes. They are. And meeting them in person, I kind of got a sense of why.
I think it was they were told to make it look like it wasn't
working out. That's what Susan's theory was. Because the producers do a lot of monkeying.
You know how I figured it out? Because they said we're not sleeping in the same, at the tell-all. Oh, we're not sleeping together in different rooms. Okay. But we had sex. I'm like, well, but if you're having sex, then you're obviously not separated. Like, it was just stupid. And then we saw them a week later, and they were together, and they were fine. So
we are losing people as we speak.
All that stuff is so weird.
So we'll talk about Sierra's misadventure if you'd wish, but you guys are gonna have to ask for that conversation. All right, everybody. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you on Tuesday at 2 o'clock Pacific time.
You deserve better.
Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.